Hello and welcome in. Mark here, aka the Markster. This is video number 89 in the FreeCAD series. It's going to be a quick video today. We're going to be looking at a macro called Zoom 1:1. Very simple macro. What it does, when you execute the macro, it zooms the 3D view so that the object in the 3D view will appear its actual size on the screen. So you could take a tape measure, for example, hold it up against your screen and measure that object fairly accurately. Let me show you which version I'm using today. This is 0.20. There you are, 0.20. 26858 is the revision number. And I am on Windows 10. So first, let's create an object. That's the default cylinder, which is 10 millimeters tall by default. Now let's install the macro. The Tools menu, Add-on Manager. This is the new Add-on Manager. I haven't shown yet in any of the videos. It's a little bit different look, but very similar. You have, instead of the tabs, you have a drop-down list for macros, workbenches. All is an option, or preference packs. And you have a filter here, a search bar, basically. So the macro name is Zoom 1:1. So if we just enter Zoom, Z-O, that's all we needed was the Z-O. Then we see the macro. Make sure you're in the macros right here. Make sure that's on macros, or all. All would show macros and workbenches together. So we click it, and up here you should see install. Mine says uninstall because I've already got it installed. Once you get it installed, close that. Go to macro menu, macros, and it'll be at the bottom in the list. Zoom 1_1 LC macro. Select that, click execute, and you can see our cylinder is quite a bit smaller than it was. So if I take my ruler and put it against the screen and measure in between those black lines, that'll be 10 millimeters. Let me zoom in just so you can see. In between the green lines now, not including the green lines. Between but not including. So you don't measure the edge, you measure the face. And let's look at the report view here. Zoom 1:1 macro. Control plus execute to calibrate if necessary. Tweak equals 1.0. Tweak is a value that's going to get set when you run the calibration. By default it's 1.0, which works for me. Might not work for you, depending on your hardware. not just your hardware, but your settings also. So some operating systems might have some scale values. You might be running in a virtual machine where you have scale properties where QT might not be able to get the correct hardware information in the virtual machine. If you have a dual display, a dual monitor setup, it's possible you can get the wrong information. That happens to me because I have two monitors, but they don't both have the same resolution. So it works on this main monitor, but not on the other. I can calibrate it for either one, and it works. So let's do the calibration. And the way you do that, we can go with the recent macros. Hold down Control while you click on it. And it brings up the calibration dialog. You see here is created a temporary calibration cube. And the original cylinder is hidden. That'll be unhidden when we close the dialog. And let's look at this text here. Calibration dialog. Temporary 100 millimeter cube has been created. Measure the cube and enter your measurements. A tweak value is created based on what you enter. And that'll be stored in parameters, plugins, Zoom 11 macro. You can move the dialog if you need to. You might have to move it if it's obscuring your cube. You might have to resize and cancel it. You might have to resize this and try again. If you can't see the calibration cube. So that was kind of in the way a little bit. Move it over. But don't zoom in or out. And then you take a tape measure or a ruler. Calipers are best if you have digital calipers. Be careful you don't scratch your screen. And you measure across the bottom or up and down. Enter your measurement in millimeters into this box. Press OK. And now the cylinder is made visible again. The temporary cube is deleted. And we've zoomed to the actual size of the cylinder. Very simple. If we go to Tools, Tools menu, Edit Parameters, and we look at Plugins, Zoom 101 macro, that's where the tweak parameter is stored. You can actually change the tweak parameter here, but it's better to let the macro calibration calculate this for you. For me it's 1.0. For you it might be 1.5, maybe 0.5. It just all depends on your setup. So this could be useful for just being able to see how big your object is in reality. If you're making something, gives you a little, just a way to get a rough approximation. If you're trying to match or create a mate for some other part, maybe you can hold it up against the screen and See if it's gonna looks like it's gonna match up with that part. If you're way off, maybe you'll catch that error before printing, like if you use radius instead of diameter or something like that. Inches instead of millimeters, something like that. Just keep in mind that these edges are not part of the size. The more you zoom in, the less of a percentage these edges are. If you zoom out, it increases the error factor. So when you measure, don't measure those edges. And on the calibration dialog, there are no edges. Let's run that again to show you. See, this has no edges, no dark edges. It's just a face. So measure what you see during the calibration. So that's going to do it for this video. Nice and short, 12 minutes or so. I think I covered what I wanted to cover in it, hopefully. Just remember, don't scratch your screen. Remember, you probably need to calibrate. Maybe you won't. And when you measure, the edges are not part of the measurement. The most likely reason you need to calibrate, if you got two monitors of different resolution, if you've got some sort of scaling setting somewhere in your operating system, or if you're running inside a virtual machine, and I guess there could be many other reasons. But once you get it calibrated, as long as you don't change any of those settings, it should be good on all kinds of different size objects. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video.